Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tasha Love Show. I am so excited that you guys are here with us today, and I have an amazing guest, Dr. Nelson Adams. I am so excited that you came in today with us, and there's so much that I want to cover. So, a little bit about yourself. Please tell the audience.
Well, first, let me say thank you, Tasha, for having me. I don't take these opportunities for granted. In fact, there's some things in life that don't come back. Spoken words, speak hours, missed opportunities. So I would not have missed this opportunity to come and share with you and your audience. I'm Nelson Adams. I'm a native of Miami, born in Overtown a few years ago, 1953. In fact, I've got a birthday coming up February 1st. I'm thankful for that. But I attended the public schools here in Miami-Dade, starting Phyllis Whitney Elementary School, then I went to what was then Wapata and Florida School. That school, it was in 62. And then I went to Georgia School was called. It was built. I was in the first class then. Matriculated to Miami-Jackson Senior High School. It was 80% white when I attended Tasha. Got the 12th grade, and by the time I graduated 4 years later, it had reversed. It was 80% black. So it had a huge transition. That is a neighborhood transition from white flight. I was fortunate enough to attend college in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, got a degree in zoology. I always wanted to be a physician, and I was blessed with that opportunity. I attended Miami Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, and graduated in 1978. For a variety of reasons that we can discuss later if you desire, I decided to specialize in obstetrics and gynecology, which is who I am. After 4 years at Emory University in Atlanta, I moved to Mobile, Alabama, which is actually the birthplace of my dad.
Okay.
I was there for about 3 years. My father got very ill, had a terminal illness, and I moved back to Miami to help take care of him. That was 1984. I've been back in Miami ever since, and I'm blessed to have had a wonderful practice. Delivered more than 10,000 babies. And yes, I've delivered the good, the bad, and a few other ones too.
Right.
Lots of surgeries, and I've worn many hats in the healthcare arena. I can discuss that more. To be honest with you, today, though you're interviewing me, it's really not about me. It's about recognizing that all of us have been gifted, and all of us can do something. None of us can do everything. And so I'm here really to encourage everybody, lottie-dottie and everybody, to do all that you can for as many as you can, for as long as you can.
I love that. Okay. Well, yes, we definitely have to discuss some of those things. So, Dr. Nielsen, literally, you said that it was a razor ride. You wanted to be a doctor. You always wanted to be a physician. What was that reason?
You know, as a little boy, all you really heard about, both of my parents were educators. My dad was a school principal at Dunbar Elementary for many years. My mother taught at Carmel High School for many years. And I grew up, as I said earlier, in Overtown. Overtown, when I was a kid, had everything. I was exposed to the best of the best. And flip side of that, the worst of the worst. So we had it all. Everybody was there together. So we had businesses, we had our churches, we had our educational institutions, we had the professional class, the working class, and the least, the lost, and the left out, all in one neighborhood. A chance to be exposed to lots of real life situations. I say that to say that I was exposed to Black physicians. I can't tell you the number of people who tell me that they didn't see a Black physician until they were an adult, or until they moved from the city that they lived in. Not my experience. My pediatrician, Dr. Dazelle Simpson, who passed away not so very long ago, black woman. The doctor that delivered me, a black man, Dr. George Stiles. The doctors that took care of me as a kid, all black doctors. So exposed early on. And in second grade, wrote a little note, and the question was asked, what do you want to be? I knew about teachers, I knew about doctors, and I said, and sometimes if you say it, it
happens.
It happens. That I wanted to be a doctor, and I just stuck with that. So I took science classes and math classes and all of the things that prepared me for that. And I was fortunate enough when I attended college to have counselors who encouraged me, who thought that maybe, just maybe, I was not quite a diamond in the rough. I was actually a piece of coal, but they could put enough pressure on me. I could maybe actually fulfill my dream, and I'm blessed to say that I have.
Did you ever feel like you were able to make it? Was there a class that you took, or you felt like you were struggling? You said you were a coal. I can't imagine you being a coal and delivered all these babies, right?
Yeah.
So how were you a coal?
There were many classes where today they would call it the imposter syndrome. I'm just not good enough because I was surrounded always by folk who were really, really smart, really gifted. I was always during my formative years in the high-performing group. And they were group students. They were 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C, whatever it was. And one group was kind of the high achievers. Those were folk who were right on target. And then there were some who needed special help. So I was always in that top group. But I was not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Got it.
I was in the drawer, but not. And so because of that, sometimes I felt that maybe I just wasn't quite good enough. That was not that I didn't have the aptitude or the desire, but maybe I didn't work hard enough. Maybe I didn't study enough. Maybe I wanted to do other things other than be a good student. I will say this as well, that because both of my parents were educators, and because I was from a home that had a mom and a dad, and it was a more traditional, if you will, stereotypical home of the day. That was not the case with many of my friends. My friends were in homes that were single parented. Many of my friends did not have parents who were professionals. And so in order to be more like them, sometimes I actually, in retrospect, realized that I held myself back. Sometimes I didn't want to get the best grade because you should have gotten it because your dad is a principal. That kind of thing. And that became, the more you do things, it becomes sort of a habit. And even in college, sometimes because I wanted to blend in, I wanted to be a part of the regular folk, maybe I didn't perform quite as well as I could. In addition to that, I wanted to do lots of things. I've got maybe a little bit of ADD because I like math, but I like sports too. I like being in the Boy Scouts, but I like the girls too. And so I was trying to do it. I wanted to play football, but I played saxophone as well. So I kind of do it all. And I never liked the notion of being a jack of all trades. But I did want to have a broad base because I always thought that if I had a broad base, I could then pick and choose those areas that I really was passionate about. And I found that as it relates to medicine, OBGYN was the specialty that I was passionate about.
And were you really passionate about that? Because the first one I think I saw was Bill Cosby, right? So everybody relates to that. So why were you so passionate about being that?
OBGYN, as you know, is a physician who takes care of women. I understood at an early age that women really were the decision makers as it relates to health in the family. They decided whether or not you were going to go to the doctor. They decided whether or not you were going to have to stay home from school. They decided whether or not you were going to get a Tylenol or castor oil. And castor oil was something I did not like. But suffice it to say that because of that, because they were actually the decision maker as it relates to all things related to health, including the social determinants for health, whether or not you put a sweater on, whether or not you put an undershirt on, everything. The food that you ate. It dawned on me that if you could influence a woman, the mother, you're more likely to influence the family. And if you could influence the family, you're more likely to influence the neighborhood, the community, the city, the state, the nation, well, maybe even the world. So I figured that if I could help women get better and think healthier, that I might be able to be more impactful. The other reason obstetrics and gynecology appeal to me is that obstetrics in particular, for the most part, is a happy specialty. You bring new life into the world. And what a joy that is. I mean, it invigorates you. It gives you hope. It gives you something to be happy about. The transformation, the transition that takes place from a laboring mother to a mother who has just delivered a baby is amazing. From they don't call it labor for nothing. You know, it's hard work. I've never had a baby, but I've witnessed it thousands of times, and it looks like hard work to me. But from the discomfort, the pain, the agony, the trauma of labor, in the twinkling of an eye, as soon as that baby is born, it's as if all of that never happened. You're talking about joy, unspeakable joy. And I was witness to that almost every day for the last 45 years. To see a newborn baby, a clean slate. I don't know whether or not this could be a mass murderer or a president of the United States. You just don't know. But I would bless in my own way, oftentimes openly and publicly, that baby. Always, at least privately, pray for that baby, a good and productive citizen. So OBGYN is big on, for many reasons, what I thought would potentially be the most impactful specialty, at least for me. Last but not least, it was limited in terms of diagnoses and skills that I had to have. I thought about maybe being a cardiologist. That's a big deal. Internist, where you look at the whole body of your practice, but those were very expensive. OBGYN allowed me to really focus on it. Number one, just one sex. Number two, just one aspect of the body. So I could become expert about that and didn't have to be a jack of all trades.
So you focused.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this, because you're a pastor as well as a doctor. And a lot of
I'm an associate minister at my church. I'm not a pastor, even though I think my practice has allowed me to be the pastor of many.
Definitely, because I've been there. So a lot of children will say, I want to be a doctor, and they don't know that road ahead. So my first question, you can tell the audience, if you have a young person who's inspiring to do what you do, what would you tell them are some of the tips that they need to now hold in now? Because it is a long journey. And I remember when I was in elementary school and they said, what do you want to be? And I was a doctor and lawyer. Those were the years went up. And we didn't know it was like 10 years after you finished high school that you would be in school, residency. So what would you tell them?
It's almost regardless of what they raise their hand and say they want to be. It's that they've got to live in the moment. In other words, if I was talking to a sixth grader, I'd say, what you've got to do is be the best sixth grader that you can be, so that next year you can hopefully be a seventh grader, and then be the best seventh grader that you can be. So don't put the cart before the horse. Don't get out beyond your skis. Don't get ahead of yourself. be the best version of yourself today. And Scripture talks about that and reminds us that we shouldn't even worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. The issues of today are sufficient unto themselves. So I encourage folk to focus on now because tomorrow is going to take care of itself. And one thing for sure, if you don't do well today, it's all pie in the sky. It's all folly. It relates to these other things that you might want to accomplish. So keeping focused and realizing that there is a process. There is a step 1, and there's a step 2, and there's a step 3, and it goes on. And each step of the way, you've got to be the best version of yourself that you can be.
Got it. And as far as people finding out what is that thing. So everybody's like talking about purpose and calling and gifting. How would you tell people to do that? Like, how do I find what is my purpose? What I should be doing in life for the rest of my life? The thing I love about the show is really, how do you do what you love? And of course you love it because you've been doing it for 45 years.
True.
And you still go in the office now. I thought you'd be retired by now. He's like, no, you got to go into the
Well, I'm
office.
close. I'm working on the RE. I'm tired. I'm not rich.
You're not retired. So you've done so much in the field. So obviously you have mastered it when you do what you love. But how do people find out what is their purpose, their calling, what they're supposed to be doing with their lives?
Here's the secret sauce. First of all, it's exposure.
Okay.
You know, oftentimes you don't know what you don't know because you don't know.
Oh, right.
And so exposure. And one of the things that I talked about my early childhood in Overtown, I was exposed to everything.
Right.
Like I said, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And some of that allowed me to make decisions about what I wanted for my own life. Sometimes those things that seem bad create the best examples for us because it makes it clear what you don't want to do.
Right.
Talking about exposure, my father had some real estate and he had some really cheap labor. So free, really cheap.
Right.
So all the painting, a little bit of roofing.
Right.
So early on, I knew
This ain't it.
I definitely didn't want to be a roofer. I mean, it's hot up there, the tires. I mean, that was not what I wanted to do. And I always enjoyed and still do enjoy working the ground. So I garden even today, and I find great joy in watching things grow. But there's some things just early on because of exposure you have an affinity for. You know, as I said earlier, because I knew Black physicians existed, there was no reason why I couldn't be one of them. So I did not have any real hesitation. And once I had said that was the path I wanted to go on, that's the direction that folk encouraged. And trying to find somebody that, you know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes.
Particularly children. And they are very perceptive. They pick up on things right away. If you really don't love a child, they kind of sense that. You may not be able to say it, to articulate that, but it impacts them sometimes in ways that don't reveal themselves until so many years later. So I think exposure is the key to providing opportunities for young people in particular. And, you know, not every flower blooms on the first day of spring.
Right.
And in other words, there's some kids who get it early on. And in second grade, I want to be a doctor, and I stuck with that. Others will change. Change.
Exactly.
But you continue to move forward. Continue to be exposed. And, you know, for those of us who recognize that to a great degree our steps are ordered. Scripture reminds us the steps of a good man, and all of us want to be good boys and girls, right? Boys and girls,
right?
Men and women, we want to be good, and our steps need to be ordered. So you need to be prayerful.
Healthy.
Because so much of what happens to us is out of our control. And it's not so much that good things won't happen or bad things won't happen, because both will happen. It's how you deal with them. I was a Boy Scout. And the Boy Scout motto and the Girl Scout motto is be prepared. So oftentimes when talking to young folk in particular, I remind them, you got to be prepared. And the question is, prepared for what, Doc? I said, well, I don't know. But you got to be prepared, which means you got to be exposed. You got to have an open mind. You know, and head, hands, and heart, those three. You got to get rid of the stinking thinking.
Okay.
You got to have good work ethic. You got to work. Nobody's got to give it to you. But more important than head and hands is heart. You got to have a clean heart so that you can serve. You're not here so that you can walk around peacock proud. You're here to give service to others. You know, when I was a kid, one of the things I used to hear, and it never made sense to me at all, it is more blessed to give than to receive. I ain't going to buy that one. Hey, but you know, the longer I live, the more I realize that is so very true.
Okay.
So much joy comes when you give. And the song says, the more you give, the more he gives to you. That's been my experience. That's been my story. And that's what you call grace. You know, unmerited favor. I've had much favor in my life. And to whom much is given, much is required. Much is required.
Message, right. Awesome. So I want to find out, being a doctor, you said you did it because of women's health. What were some of the tips that you would like to give to women as far as what they need to do to be that community change agent, be that person who builds the community from the inside out? What are some of the tips that you got these women?
You know, it's always about self-help.
Okay.
You know, if I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one. Okay. In other words, if you really want to be impactful, Maya Angelou put it this way: it's not so much what you say, it's not even what you do. It's how you make people feel. And so I encourage women and men and
everybody,
lottie-dottie and everybody, that they really have to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And the way you do that is by making sure you got your act together first. Some people say, I don't want to be a role model. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. I'm going to just do me. Well, like it or not, you are a role model. Somebody's watching you. And so you've got to make sure that the turbulence of life comes, and it will come. Just like on the airplane, when that oxygen mask falls down, you can't worry initially about your children, your husband, your wife, big mama there.
Right.
You got to make sure that you are strong and that you have oxygen. Otherwise, you're going to be of no assistance to anybody else. So self-care, self-help is extremely important. And that starts with here. As a man, as a woman, thinketh, so is he. Right. You know, so you got to get rid of the stinking thinking, and you do that by because I'm a Christian. I believe strongly that it's from the Word of God. So you read those books that are powerful, that are practical, that provide wisdom. Until you can get your own act together, it's going to be very difficult for you to be of assistance to others. So self-help is tip number one to everybody, women. The second piece is that whole notion of recognizing that whatever blessing you have, whatever gift you have, wasn't given to you just for you. Right. You know, some folk have 4 in the family. Me, my wife, my kids, us four.
That's
No
it.
more. It's not like that. It's for you to spread the good news. And I think when folk have that spirit, that giving spirit, that really two types of people in the world, givers and takers. Some folk take. Others give. And there are times when you do have to take. Ecclesiastes, a great book of the Bible, wisdom books, reminds us that there's a season for everything. Sometimes you really do have to take. You've got to be selfish. You've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself. You got to be a taker. But more often than not, if you are strong, you can give. That same great book of history and faith reminds us that, when things get tough, Paul talked about a thorn in his flesh. When he was having difficulty, we don't know what it was, but all of us have thorns that we have to deal with. And he prayed and he cried and he cried and he prayed. Please remove this. Make it go away. That's not the answer he got. The answer was, my grace is sufficient. So we have to recognize that whatever it is we're going through, as long as our Creator gets the glory, that everything's going to be okay. So you've got to, number one, take care of yourself and be prepared, if you will. Second piece is you've got to make sure that you are a giver. Mostly, not a taker. And then finally, what drives me is my go-to every day is to be reminded that the favor that's been shown in my life is not just for me. And that's what I will always come to whom much is given, much is required. So this is not just a situation where you are blessed so that you can be blessed. You're blessed so that you can be a blessing.
Right.
That's the way I try to live my life.
Interesting. All right. So as far as navigating in the medical field, a lot of people, it has changed ridiculously. What would you say are some of your tips as far as just to the audience, as far as navigating, just finding a good doctor is such a challenge nowadays.
Sure.
So what would you say to people as far as what should they do?
Yeah, well, first of all, there is a significant shortage of doctors.
Okay.
Period. 80,000 or so short today, and the number's growing, and people are living longer. So, and because they're living longer, that means there are more older people. And who needs the health care the most? Older people. And so we've got a huge gap there. So in medicine, the doctors who are proceduralists, those who do things, the surgeons, the gastroenterologists, the OBGYNs, do things, are typically paid more. Those who we need probably the most, the primary care physicians, the family practice docs, the internists, the pediatricians, don't make as much, but they work harder. The reason we're having such a dilemma now is, on one, there's a shortage, and then there's a maldistribution of the specialists. So the doctors who come out of school now with tremendous debt, the average indebtedness of a medical student now is about $300,000. You heard me right, $300,000. That's a lot of money. And those loans have to be repaid. So when the decision comes to whether or not you're going to be a proceduralist, a specialist who does procedures, or a primary care physician, I got these bills, I better do something that's going to pay a little bit more. So we have that maldistribution of the specialties. On top of all of that, you've heard it said before that when America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. Same thing is true as it relates to the disparity that we see among healthcare providers. We have even fewer Blacks in medicine for a variety of reasons. There are fewer Black men in medical school today than when I was in medical school 50 years ago. Now that should shock somebody.
Right.
It certainly shocks me. And so I encourage you to encourage young folk who have an interest in healthcare to have tenacity. You may not do well on every test. I didn't do well on every test, but you have to press forward. The woman with that issue of blood.
Okay.
She's been to all the doctors and spent all the money, 12 long years. But she pressed her way. And sometimes we have to encourage folk not to give up, don't throw in the towel. What we find, another disparity between men and women is that Black men, if they don't do well on the exams to get into medical school, et cetera, are more likely to say, "Fine, I guess it's not for me. I got it. I got to get a job. I got to do something else." Women, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's tenacity or they feel they have more time. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're built that way.
Right.
After all, they have to have strength to have these babies.
Right.
But they will, if they didn't get it the first time, the old saying, if first you don't succeed, try again. They tend to do that and oftentimes are successful. And so I encourage young men who are interested in healthcare, if you are faced with failure on first attempt, don't give up. Regroup, get better prepared, be prepared, and try it again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And lastly, I'd say this. Though being a physician is considered to be the top of the heap, if you will, top of the food chain as it relates to healthcare providers, there are many other professions in the healthcare arena that are so important. There is nothing more important than a nurse.
Right.
Doctors walk in, we come in with all white coats and this and for only a short amount of time if you're in the hospital. We're in the see for 2 or 3 minutes a day. The nurse is there all day. And guess what? That's who is taking care of you. That's who's giving you the medications. That's who's changing your bandage. That's who's making sure that your diet is appropriate. That's who's helping you to the bathroom. Nursing care, number one, is extremely important, but it also is a profession that should get tremendous kudos.
Right.
And nurses make a pretty decent living as well. So don't forget nursing. There's something we also call mid-level providers. Those are physician assistants and nurse practitioners. They do a lot of what physicians do without having to go to school quite as long. So consider those things. And then technical fields, we've got all sorts of techs, and from ultrasound techs to radiology techs across the board.
So many different things.
Everything. So don't limit yourself there, but stay encouraged. Keep your faith. Don't throw in the towel. You can do it. If I can do it, trust me. You can do it.
All right, the coal that delivered 10,000 babies. All right, so we're running out of time. So can you just tell us what's next now that you're almost in retirement?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
The most difficult job I've ever had, and I've had many, started a managed care company. It's one of the largest HMOs in the state of Florida. I chair that board. I chair the board of my medical school at Miami Medical College. A lot of my boards locally. I'm very active at my church. But the hardest job I've ever had is being a parent. So, and now I'm a grandparent. I'm really excited about that. So what's next is continuing to do what I do. I have a radio show that I've taken a break from. It's called Health Talk. And the mantra is when you've got your health, you've got just about everything. That's your physical health, your mental health, your financial health, your spiritual health. Health in general is health is wealth. And so we're going to get that going again. Earlier I was listening to your interview one of your guests who talked about the number of books that she has written. I've not written my first book yet, so that's something that we're thinking about.
Okay.
I also heard her say that she went back and got a doctorate at the age of 76.
Yeah.
I'm saying, wow, I must be a slacker then. I gotta get on my A game here. So there's a lot to do, to whom much is given, much is required. So I'm still trying to be the best version of myself that I can be. To the listening audience, I do want you to know that I want you to be wild, be. No, not that one. I know what you just thought. Okay. In my day, that was bring your own bottle or bring your own booze or bring your own beer or whatever. No, be you. Authentically you, only better. Every day you need to try to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And I talk to myself that way. Nelson, you got to be better today than you were yesterday. And I encourage you to strive towards being the best version of yourself that you can be every day, and to remember it this way. Good, better, best. Never ever let it rest. Not until your good becomes your better and your better becomes your best.
Yes, thank you so much. That was awesome. And I think I've heard my dad say that good, better, best always. And so that was definitely a touching word. But thank you for coming on. I so appreciate it. This is such a blessing. And I thank you guys for joining the Tasha Love Show. We look forward to seeing you again. And thank you for everything.
Tasha, thank you so much. And then this is what we're going to say to Tasha. May the Lord watch between me and you while we're absent. Blessings, my sister.
Thank you so much. All right.